Hello Tamers, Regina or Regigglypuff here, and welcome to Pre-Release and You. This is the week where special release booster celebration is going to begin, y'all. This is going to be a weird pre-release. This is the first step in global synchronization for sets with Japan, so they are combining both BT18 and part of 19 for this set. Usually, a pre-release lasts for about a week until the set drops, but this time around, the pre-release period is set for 2 weeks. It's starting on October 25th and ending on November 8th. Keep in mind that when you check the Digimon TCG website and when you check TCG Player, they are both showing an official release date of November 1st, so check in with your local game store or wherever you usually get your products from and double check to see when they're going to actually start selling the product. This does mean that there might be an awkward situation where the set's already out, but you're still going to have an extra week of pre-releases before people start doing local tournaments for it. But just keep in mind that that's how things are listed on both the websites and the TCG Plus app. So it's kind of scattered everywhere right now. But how does pre-release work? Well, you're going to get 6 packs of the set. You're going to get a pre-release pack that will have 2 stamped cards that come from the set, and then you're going to get a participation card. You're going to build a deck of 40 cards from those cards that you pull, and then some places will let you use the participation card, which is the Machine Dramon from EX1, but generally you're looking at those 6 packs plus those 2 cards you get from the little pre-release pack. Digimon also does follow a, I guess, different set of rules, or like a tweaked set of rules for pre-release. So if you want to refresh yourself on those rules, or if you haven't actually gone to a pre-release and want to read up on those rules beforehand, I'll post a link to those rules below in the description. This will be from the Digimon website itself. And I actually just reference this all the time before I go to pre-releases because it's just really nice to remind myself how I should be deck building. And speaking of, the goal of this video is actually just to go briefly over some of the cards in this pool, and then to showcase how I usually try to deck build for pre-releases. I've been doing pre-releases since BT4, so I think actually when they first started doing pre-releases. So it always feels different every single time, but generally there are a couple of rules that I follow and keep to my, and try to keep to every single pre-release. And it includes how I view cards and how I try to sort them in my head, and then my general ratios for level 3s, level 4s, etc. Because the thing is, a card seems really good in its own unique deck, but when you pull it in pre-release, you're like, wow, this is actually really terrible to play. Of course, disclaimer, this is all just of my thoughts, so please don't feel like you have to pull these cards to have a good pre-release pull. Honestly, half of the fun of pre-releases is just opening up your cards and seeing what you can make from the chaos in there. And I always find it like a little puzzle because sometimes things work and it's great, and sometimes things don't and it's just funny. So honestly, just have fun with it, right? It's just everyone's in the same boat, and you shouldn't be too hard on yourself if you're like me and you don't pull any good SRs or alt arts, because it has happened where I have sat next to people who all pull heat and I get nothing. I'm happy for them, I promise, but why can't it be me? Anyway, speaking on that note of my luck, let's just go ahead and go into these card pools. Alright, so let's start off with the base of all Digimon, the eggs. The BT18 section gives us a potential 6 eggs, 1 in each of the colors that you normally use. Sorry, white eggs. But the BT19 section only gives us 3 eggs, 1 in blue, 1 in green, and 1 in purple. So from the get-go, a majority of the BT18 eggs do rely on either a specific Tamer color or a specific Digimon color. So they don't feel like terrible eggs to pull in the set because, one, there's a lot of Tamers that you can pull in here. There's a couple dual color Tamers too, so they'll help meet the color requirement pretty easily. And then because you're going to pull a lot of commons and uncommons, the color requirement for those eggs won't be hard to meet. It'll just require having that Digimon color on the field, right? But in my opinion, I actually think the Black Kuzenimon is probably the favorite egg that I would want to pull, just because it's generic and it's a nice way to be rewarded for removing Digimon on your opponent's side of the field. The purple Pokemon also seems pretty decent because there is a lot of non-battle deletion happening in this set for some reason, but it will be better if you manage to open a lot of purple rookies, just so you can get the full benefit of that on deletion effect, right? But this does leave 3 eggs that I'm kind of not looking forward to pulling. It's the green Puroromon, the purple Fremon, and the blue Puyoyomon. So The reason being is that the Fremon is an on deletion you trash cards on your own for every color, right? And the hard part about that is in a set like this where you only have 40 cards, you're trying to evo into like your level 6s or 7s as fast as possible. It's really easy to deck yourself out. Like, I don't think people realize until they're playing in pre-release, it is so fast to deck yourself out because you're doing a lot of evolving at times. There's also a lot of times where you're just hard playing things, but because drawing is a necessary part of digivolving, you have to be really careful about how fast you're evolving on top of things. But the Puroromon and the Pyoyomon, the reason I'm a little bit more hesitant to want to open those is because they are archetype specific, right? One deals with the sea animal line and stuff like that, and then the other one deals with like the bees. And conversely, if you manage to pull enough cards to have a really fun sea animal line or a bee line, then those eggs get better, right? But for me, it's like, okay, if I have to, I'll put them inside of my egg deck. An extra note about eggs, though. I do consider the egg colors as well, depending on what options I pull and I might want to put into the deck. However, if I pull less than 5 eggs, I will probably put all of them inside the egg deck just because I don't want to have to worry about not being able to draw off of an egg evolution. The Fremont, I will say, though, has me a little hesitant about that rule that I usually take just because milling myself out is probably one of my worst fears when playing a Digimon deck. But my general rule of thumb outside of that specific instance is if you have 5 eggs, just play them. Like, honestly, like, it doesn't matter how good the effects are sometimes, like, just play all 5 eggs. It would be great if you could pull multiple really good eggs, but if you find 5 eggs, I promise you there will be people around you who are super, super jealous about that. But, yeah. Alright, so for rookies, there's actually a lot of them to choose from this time around, and my general rule of thumb for normal pre-release is just to jam all of them into your deck, because sometimes nothing beats good old Rookie Rush. However, in all seriousness, I kind of just want to put about 10 rookies in there at minimum, and no more than 12 to 14 overall. And there's actually kind of like a tier list on how I look at rookies, and it has to do with the on play, the inherits, and then their evolution cost, right? So the Sayakomon in this set is a two cost rookie to hard play, and it's got 3k DP, and I actually really want to see those ones just because it's a nice way to memory choke your opponent, and a 3k body, even for a rookie, is just really nice because all the other rookies tend to be about 1k. This is also the set where we're going to get some of the floodgates for red, so they're kind of a neat sort of like Digimon just a hard drop because there is a lot of Digimon in this pre-release pool that do have a way to gain memory back that aren't tamer effects. But most importantly, I like to look at the inherits. This time around, there's a lot of like good inherits floating around, more so than usual. You've got everything under the sun, right? You've got, I think you actually do have everything right. It's like jamming, reboot, blocker, retaliation, and all of those are just really, really good keywords to have. The reason I love those so much is it makes your bodies really sticky and it makes them hard to get rid of for your opponent. Having jamming and retaliation in general, those are actually the 2 keywords I try to prioritize for the most part inside of my decks, because jamming means you can for the most part swing with abandon into your opponent's security because you've got jamming, right? The only thing you're worried about is options that have removal, which, spoiler it, there's very few of those in this card pool. And then retaliation makes it so that your opponent has to be willing to give up their own body in order to get rid of your Digimon. And the only reason that they'd be okay with that is because there's actually also a lot of cards in this card pool that have when this Digimon is removed from is deleted by something other than one of your own effects, right? And the retaliation would actually fulfill that requirement. Also, I generally try to stay away from 1-cost evolution rookies, but I'm going to make an exception for the Beemons in this set, even if I don't pull the rest of the Fan Beemon line. And the reason why is that Inherit is so good to have. You are playing in a format where people can potentially pull some of the same cards and run the same cards as you, so you could be matching them DP for DP, and that 1k inherit can sometimes make all of the difference. So for me, what I would be looking at is, can I get the keywords that I really like, that I think would help my game plan, and can I get that extra DP boost? I will also say that when all else fails, you can just drop bodies on the field and swing. Sometimes, like I said, rookie rush is just fun to do. Like, if your opponent spends time building, what are they going to do against your army of 1k bodies? Nothing. If they survive somehow, that'd be wild. Because, again, there is actually a lot of Tamers in this set as well, right? But yeah, just 12 to 14 rookies is my general, like, sort of range. Because I just want to be able to see pieces, and part of that is just being able to digivolve or just having on plays and searches. So for the level 4s this set, it feels a little bit more awkward in terms of building because of all the hybrids and tamers from BT18. My usual rule of thumb is I try to stick to when digivolving effects, low play costs, and then good inherits in that order. But because the frontier tamers in this set have their respective spirit evolutions in there as well, I would say probably pay a little bit more attention to what ratio you pull between all of them, because unlike previous hybrid evolutions, the hybrids in this format for like those spirit evolutions, they do name specifically the reduced cost evolution for the respective tamers. So like the Yaguni stuff like does specify Takuya as the reduced evolution instead of, you may evo this on top of a red like tamer as if it was a level 3 Digimon, right? And so the question you have to ask yourself when you pull these cards is paying the 3 cost for the evolution worth it for their 1 digivolving skills? And a lot of the times the answer could probably be yes, just because a lot of them are pretty powerful, right? So I would say it's worth it to kind of take the time and like really see what would you like to prioritize in terms of in terms of their 1 digivolving effects. And honestly, I think my favorite level 4 in this one is that beetle one, just because having a 7k blocker as a level 4, that's nutty to me. That's insane, and I think that's really fun to have. Like, I really hope I pull that one. But when it comes to level 4, my general level 4 count is about 10 to 11. Just because I want to see them. And the other reason that like I prioritize the play cost is sometimes you just have to play a level 4 because, somehow even with 14 rookies in your deck, you can't find any of them. So some things don't change in pre-release, and bricking is one of them. So I hope it doesn't happen to you, because I promise it will definitely happen to me. The level 5 pool in this one has some really fun effects. I love the Wisemon. I think it's my immediate favorite pick, just because being able to mess with your opponent's deck is also really fun, especially in pre-release, and it tells you what they actually pulled, right? Being able to be like, hey, let me look at the top 3 cards and then bottom deck them or keep them on the top, it's kind of hilarious. Following that up, I actually love the Iceclad Dipenmon, because it is such a nasty Digimon to have if you pull the right cards just to give it more evolution cards. Iceclad is also just a really neat mechanic to have in pre-release. Sometimes your opponent will hard play a body and can't do anything about it, and if you have a way to get that Iceclad up to like even 1 Digivolution card, you can just delete something on their field, right? It's great. So the next best contender for me has to be the BT19 Chimeramon, because it's such a good board wipe in this format. Just make sure you keep an eye on those when deleted other than by one of your effects that might be on your opponent's board. It's also not a terrible card to just hard play for 8 cost, because it is a possible way to swing the game in your favor, right? You can hit 3 potential targets on your opponent's field and just really set them back a turn. But it does also look like the level 5 pool here does have some added benefits if you meet archetype requirements. So again, it's kind of worth shifting through your pools and seeing if you have enough of the archetypes to make it work. I will say that nothing feels better than being able to pop off with a combo in that way. But I have also had a lot of pre-release events where I'm like, wow, I'm 1 or 2 cards away from making this work and being like, all right, it's fine. I don't have to stick with it. So it does seem like a lot of the cards in here are very focused on trying to get you to play the archetype. And in pre-release, I just tend to ignore that part if I don't find the other cards. I'm like, oh, that's neat, but my pools don't help support that, so we're just going to move on from it, right? But it does also look like these level 5s have a bit of an anomaly to them, because a good portion of them seem to evolve for a cost of 4 versus the usual 3. Except for you, Lucemon, for some reason you're evolving for 8, but I guess it's just because, Lucemon has always been a little bit special in terms of the way that you play them and the way that you evolve them. But once you read some of these effects for the level 5s, it's really easy to understand why they evolve for such a high cost. Because honestly, some of these effects are just absolutely crazy to have in like a format where you're like, yeah, okay, I'll just stick a couple of these in there because why not? When it comes to pre-release, though, I will usually run about 5 to 7 level 5s. And for this one, I'll probably actually just prioritize the ones that I mentioned. So that would be the Wisemon, the Daipenmon, and then the Chimeramon. But I do love the majority of the blue level 5s and the Volcanomon. Red, just in general as a color for pre-release, tends to be really aggressive, and sometimes aggression in pre-release is the way to go, because if your opponent can't keep up with the pressure you're putting on them, then you very rarely get punished for just going into their security. Okay, so the level 6s in this card pool are kind of just wild and all over the place. They are just really fun all around, and a few of them aren't really great to pull unless you pull the rest of the very specific line, and I am looking at you, Lucemon Larva. But for the most part, a lot of these 6s are just really neat. They all have alternate play and evolutions as well, so you can see how viable they can be to run with the rest of your pools. Generically enough, though, I actually think the Ancient Kazemon really sticks out to me because it can save you for a turn if you can manage to DP booster, or you can get into it really fast, right? Being able to stun your opponent's whole board and just swing into their Digimon, especially since it seems that the Kazemon line is going to have the piercing inherit, so if you manage to get like a symmetrical stack like that, it's pretty devastating for your opponent to try to come back from that, right? It also is a 3-cost evolution, which I really appreciate for the level 6s. De-Digivolve is also a very strong mechanic that a lot of the 6s will have. And in general, De-Digivolve is just a very good mechanic because it does get around the when is deleted in battle or will leave the battlefield effects. So it's something that you can just be like, all right, cool, let me De-Digivolve this so you don't get that inherit, right? And so with that in mind, that makes the BT18 Machinedramon and the Ancient Beetlemon really good top ends in my opinion. So I think if you pull those are just kind of automatic includes to put into the deck, because Digivolving is so devastating sometimes because you're just like, oh, okay, well, now you're a lot more vulnerable than you were before. So my suggestion for the level 6s in this set is look at what their secondary effect is and see if you can really utilize it with what else you have in the deck. So for me, it's the way that I make cuts to the deck if it goes over my intended 40 cards. And what I mean by that is if I lay out all of my cards for pre-release, or like my deck that I'm building, and I have a high ratio of level 6s, I try to see what else I have in the deck, because a lot of the hybrid stuff in this one is like on deletion, you play specific colors, and because of that, I tend to look at color ratios as well for that one. So this is, I think, going to be a set where like you really have to pay attention to what happens when they get deleted and what else you're putting inside of your deck. So my usual ratio for level 6s is actually only about 3 to 5 level 6s, mostly because by the time I try to find the second one, the game's usually over, right? Like, again, 40 cards, you evo hopefully pretty consistently. Your level 6s are not going to be there for the most part. And then for the level 7s, they're honestly just super dependent on what you pull. And I know I've been saying that a lot, but I actually, the reason why is just because it's mostly Millenniummon. And if you don't pull good Millennium stuff or like things to help with the composite stuff, then there's just not really a point in running them, right? They have some pretty good board control effects, but I don't think I find myself running these level 7s just because it's a lot to ask for out of 6 packs. If you do feel super inclined to run level 7s, I would say no more than 1 to 2 level 7s, right? A lot of the times the benefit has to be really good for me to want to play them. You all thought that I forgot about these, huh? No, I did not forget about the aces. I just think that they deserve their own sort of section. There's actually only 4 aces in the set, and as much as I want to build Lord Nightmon, I think that is actually the worst ace you can pull in this set, because it is so specific in what you can do, and that's playing Nightmon stuff, right? If you pull the Nightmon stuff, good for you. If you pull the Lord Nightmon Ace alongside with it, good for you. Absolutely do that. But Shadow Seraphimon, Dynasmon, and Susanomon are just all really solid pulls. So if you get any of those aces, honestly, find the space for them. I actually really love the way that they work. Again, D-Digivolve and DP Reduction in regards to the Shadow Seraphi and the Dynasmon are really good control options, and they really mess up a person's game plan, and it will make them think twice about swinging into your Digimon or your security, because again, Digivolving means that they might no longer have the like that DP that they had over your Digimon, and their inherits like suddenly aren't there anymore for it, right? And then with the Dynasmon, you're giving a DP reduction to to their Digimon, and then the Dynasmon also gives you a potential DP boost depending on how much security you have left. So they are really kind of neat, like gotcha effects, and I really love both of those specifically for pre-release. If I pull a Lord Nightmon Ace, I will not complain about it because I need to go find them for the deck I want to build. But now looking at like the Susanomon Ace, it's interesting. It's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways, right? So the Susanomon, like, because there's a lot of colors running around, you can delete a pretty high DP Digimon, because you'll probably have 3 to 4 colors by the time you get into the Susanomon. Unfortunately, being able to get the second one attacking effect might be a little bit more difficult, because it requires you having a bunch of Tamers underneath it. But hey, if you can pull it off in pre-release somehow, you should just tell everybody, and they can just be like, you know what, you deserve the win now, because being able to pull that off, I think, might be the hardest thing to do in this pre-release. So if you do manage to do it, please let me know, because I would love to borrow your luck for all of my future events. Now for the last parts of the set, which are Tamers and options. I always try my best to prioritize memory Tamers as much as possible, because I think they're some of the best ways to keep control of your opponent. Think of it this way. In a regular Digimon match, you'll usually know if your opponent has a memory tamer available to them because of the deck that they're playing. But in pre-release, not everybody pulls a memory tamer, and you want to take advantage of that fact as much as possible, because there's a difference between having 3 memory versus 1 memory, obviously. But in a pre-release, that's the difference between having a search and potentially 2 evolutions that you can like turbo into your higher end stuff, or just having the 1 memory and only having like 1 option to really do for your turn, right? So obviously a lot of the Tamers in the set are going to be the hybrid Tamers, so you'll want to make sure that they are pretty synergistic with the rest of what you're building, and sometimes it's okay to like not put them in there, but I would say try to have like a diverse Tamer pool as much as possible if you really are going to be putting them there. In that note, I actually think Owen is probably one of the best memory Tamers to pull, just because he also lets you delete a body when a security is removed from your opponent's security stack. And on the opposite end, as much as I love his design, Zenith feels to be one of the worst Tamers to pull from here, just because he focuses so much on the Venmon line. So if you pull Tamers, don't feel bad if you don't include them in the deck, because sometimes they're not great, and I say that only about non-memory Tamers. If you pull multiple memory Tamers, if you can, just put 2 to 3 of them if you pull them, because again, the memory management in this is sometimes one of the ways that you will win, and one of the worst ways that you will feel about losing if you have the memory Tamers and didn't put them in there, right? So, but like that's just my genuine, honest opinion, is I think memory Tamers are just really good to have in pre-release, and every time somebody pulls one and I don't, I feel so bad about it. But hey, you know what? Sometimes that's the way it goes. Now we're going to look at the options, and the options do still have color requirements. So that means you still need to have either an egg, a tamer, or a Digimon on the field that meets the color requirements of these of the options. I have 2 options that I actually just really want to pull from this set, and those are going to be the Watatsumi and the Dragon's Roar. I like having security bombs if the format allows for it, because they are some of the best get out of jail free cards that you can have inside of your deck. Watatsumi's Purification does have a secondary effect where if you have the blue like Digimon that you need, you can up the level of the Digimon that you're going to bottom deck. And then Dragon's Roar does have one of my least favorite mechanics, which is trashing one of your own security. But if you have two or fewer security cards, you can put it down at the bottom of your security stack, and its security effect is really funny because it's delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less, and then if you have 0 security cards, you recover one. So it's really probably like the best option to pull because it just keeps saving your butt multiple times, and I love that. Also, Watatsumi and Dragon's Roar are in the colors that seem to be the easiest to pull off in just any sort of format, right? Red, yellow, and blue. So those are the 2 cards that I'm probably going to be slotting in and trying to find space for. The other option cards in this format seem to focus a lot on archetypes, and again, like, they're good option cards, but if you don't pull the archetypes for them, then they're not great option cards. If you run a lot of hybrid stuff, then yeah, the ones that let you play like the Tamers with inherited effects, those are really good for you. But for the most part, when I'm looking at option cards, I do like to focus on security bombs first and then synergy second in terms of like Tamer stuff. Like with BT18, right? I was lucky enough to be able to get the combinations that let me play out like the Takuyas and the Kojis. So that was like sort of like a unique situation, but I think in this set I don't think I'm going to be as lucky to be able to pull multiple inherited Tamers. So I think I would want to focus on getting Dragon's Roar in there because again, it's a common option card and I love that. So yeah, when it comes to option cards in the deck though, I don't really put more than 2 to 3 of them because sometimes they just sit in your hand. And that's not a great feeling. But really my goal in like pre-releases or like gonna build pre-release decks is just like, let me build a bunch of Digimon stacks and let me just swing at your security. If I have the option cards and I have good security bombs, great, I'll put those in there. But yeah, that's about it. So again, I actually think this is a really interesting pre-release because we are getting the hybrid set mixed in with half of BT19. So the pull ratio in this is going to be wildly like crazy for a lot of people. I don't actually know what the ratios are going to be for it, so it'll be fun. I know I said that really hesitantly, but in all honesty, I love pre-releases. I think they're so much fun. I love the chaos. It's great, and the excitement people get when they pull really good cards, and just seeing the excitement overall for a new set, right? There's just something so fun about it. So hopefully this guide helped you a little bit for sealed events and just gives you an idea of how I personally look at deck building. Maybe you agree with me and maybe you don't. That's totally fine, right? Digimon, again, is like a game the way that you play it. But if you wanted to read the cards ahead of time, just know that the full set for the special release is available on the Digimon TCG website. I will also link that below in the video description. So, but I want to say thank you for watching and good luck in your pre-release. May your pulls be blessed, and I hope you pull the SP, like the special SPs, or that you pull the alt art that you want. So, bye!